Amir Coffey was arrested early Monday morning in Hollywood on suspicion of carrying a concealed weapon. Coffey was one of two passengers in a car. The driver was pulled over by LAPD for speeding. Coffey was booked for a misdemeanor and released. His court date is August 24th. Doc Rivers and Doris Burke are the new analysts for ESPN's #1 NBA broadcast team. Contracts for Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy were not renewed. Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin went through his first practice in full pads on Monday. 7 months ago, on January 2nd, he was fighting for his life after suffering a cardiac arrest in that Monday night game in Cincinnati. What a wonderful story. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Here it is, a groove slightly transformed, just a bit of a break from the norm, just a little something to break the monotony of all that hardcore dance that has gotten to be a little bit out of control. It's cool to dance, but what about a groove that soothes and moves romance? Give me a soft, subtle mix, and if it ain't broke, then don't try to fix it. And think of the summers of the past, adjust the bass and let the Alpine blast. Pop in my CD and let me run a rhyme and put your car on cruise and lay back, cause it's summertime.
There are just certain songs that you have to play in certain seasons. For me, it ain't Christmas until you play Donny Hathaway's This Christmas, and it really ain't summer until you put Big Willie on with this track, Summertime. Indeed it is. Who knew all those years ago when he wrote this song that we'd be experiencing extreme heat like we've never experienced before in the summertime. Nonetheless, it's a great track from Big Willie, Will Smith. I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm glad to have you, delighted, in fact, to have you tuned into our program in this hour. And in this hour, conversation with one of the 21 most influential black folk in technology, according to USA Today, Stacy Spikes. We talked to Stacy in this hour about what happens when power, technology, and race intersect in the entertainment industry. We will talk with him about facing diversity, or adversity, I should say. Adversity, defying stereotypes, and shattering glass ceilings. He is the founder of MoviePass, and there's a whole backstory behind that. For those of you who love movies, as I do, he's the founder of MoviePass, and there's I'll say fascinating. There's an interesting story about what happened and how it happened and how it went down and how it came back, and we'll get all that backstory in this hour. If you are a movie fan that you've heard and have used, no doubt, MoviePass at some point. But it's my delight to welcome Stacy Spikes to this program. Stacy, how are you today?
Tavis, I'm fantastic.
It's good to have you on. I don't like the sound of that, Miles. We gotta get that sound together. But let me let Miles talk to Stacy for a second. I could just tell from that opening salvo that ain't gonna work. As we say around here, that ain't the answer to the prayer. Let's get that audio right quick, and then we can jump into this, because an hour of that's gonna drive me crazy. and I got headphones on, so I know it's going to drive you crazy as well. So we'll get that straight. But as I mentioned, Stacy is the founder of MoviePass, and there's a fascinating backstory to the story about MoviePass, which we'll get into in this hour. But once again, let's try this. Stacy, how are you today?
Tavis, I'm fantastic. How's that? Sound better?
You sound a lot better, brother. I can live with that for the next hour. The other one was,
Okay.
as I said, was not the answer to the prayer. But let me start with this. I am delighted when I saw you on this list of the 21 most influential black folk in all of technology, according to USA Today. And my mind went to, I've been on a number of these lists over the course of my career. At one point, I was on the cover of Ebony, and they do this. I mean, Ebony as well. But at one point, on the cover of Time magazine. Time magazine every 10 to 20 years, Time magazine does a cover called 30 for the Future. And they do it every 10 or 20 years because they're trying to make it generational. And if you're fortunate, you end up being one of the 30 people in this entire country who are featured on the cover of Time magazine as one of the future thinkers, leaders, public intellectuals, et cetera, in the country. I made that list some years ago, and I remember when I made the cover, I was excited on the one hand, and then I was thinking, no pressure here, Tavis, no pressure. Time magazine says you're one for the future, and so I looked at the persons on that list, and every now and then I think about who the other 29 were, and I kind of see how they're doing and how my life and career have gone. But it did put some pressure on me when you're on these lists, and in your case, one of the 21 most influential black folk in technology. That puts a little pressure on you, Stacy Spikes, does it not?
Yeah, definitely it does. But, at the end of the day, you still know that you're blessed and honored to be featured. And, I think that that's the best way to look at it. And you say, well, you know what? They like me, putting me up here. Let me now show up and see what I can do to hold up to that name.
Yeah. To that end, what have you learned? These some broad questions here, and we'll jump from here. But before we get too deep into the conversation, what have in fact you learned about how to navigate, how to deal with pressure?
I love that I can say this and get real on your show, because I have learned that prayer is very, very, very important, and keep the right perspective. A lot of people before me never got a chance to play in this arena. They, from grandparents to great-grandparents who cleaned houses and couldn't go to college and couldn't do things. So when I think about pressure, I think they had pressure and they had ways they couldn't go up. They fought long and hard for me to be able to have this opportunity. And in some ways, I'm like, okay, well, that's not pressure. I just need to show up and do what they taught me to do.
Yeah. Well, I received that. Just getting started in this conversation with Stacy Spikes, one of the 21 most influential black folk in all of technology, according to USA Today. So I'm delighted to have him on this program. He is the entrepreneur, award-winning entrepreneur, and founder of MoviePass. There's a great story behind that. But again, just getting started. A great deal more to unpack with Stacy Spikes when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
I'm James Alexander, a proud member of AARP. 1967, I was 17. That spring, my friends, the Barcades, and I made Soul Finger. It was a hit. Number 3 on the charts. That summer, we became the great Otis Redding's band. First gig, the famed Apollo. That fall, we toured. That winter found me in a morgue identifying the bodies of my bandmates and Otis Redding. My music and their memories bring me joy. The Barcades forever.
What would you call a joy that is as solemn as it is sweet and knows no bounds? A joy that's beautifully rooted in soul and resilience. This is Black Joy, a joy that reflects pride and honor despite every challenge. AARP believes the power of Black joy is limitless, and we celebrate this joy supreme. Join us in celebrating Black joy at aarp.org/blackcommunity.
Can you believe it's already back to school season? To get you ready, Chase is hosting a family event at its Crenshaw Community Center branch on Wednesday, August 2nd from 4 to 8 p.m. Chase will be giving away backpacks full of school supplies and other goodies to the first 1,000 attendees. There will be activities for the whole family to enjoy. Chase community managers will host financial health workshops for parents and kids to learn about the importance of budgeting and smart spending when preparing for back to school. Plus, there will also be lawn games and crafts for all ages. Visit chase.com/student banking to learn about Chase's family banking solutions. We hope to see you at Chase's back to school event at its Crenshaw Community Center branch on Wednesday, August 2nd. JP Morgan Chase Bank NA, member FDIC.
Contracts, and grants. This is Rambo, and I'm back August 5th. Contracts, and grants. I'll be at the Westin Hotel, LAX, Saturday, August 5th. Me and my guests are fast-paced in the contracts and grants. They only speak 6 minutes each. I have LA County, I have the city, I even have Everett, the CEO of Lindustry, coming to talk to you guys. And for the first time ever, I have Metro's Director of Certification coming. We average over 700 attendees, so you know the rules. Parking's about $15 with the event validation, event, coffee, snacks, all free, paid for by Rambo and Lindustry. And yes, you can bring guests. So save your seat, DeonRambo.com. Listen, contract ready's only 2 hours from 10 a.m. to 12. But if you get there around 9:30, I'll probably be doing some Q&As and things like that before the events I never get a chance to do. I honestly keep saying, I don't know what's more important for LA businesses right now than local contracts. So I'm back, Westin Hotel, LAX, Saturday, August 5th. August 5th. It takes 2 minutes to register. DeonRambo.com. Go register now. DeonRambo.com.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Our guest this hour is Stacy Spikes. He is the entrepreneur and founder of MoviePass. We'll tell you the story behind that in a moment. Stacy, though, let me commence by asking why and how technology for you, for those who may have just tuned in, I mentioned minutes ago that you are on the list of the 21 most influential black folk in technology. For you, how and why technology?
You know, technology is always looking forward, and I know that for me, I'm deeply curious about what's around the corner, what's coming. Technology in whatever form it is, I don't care if it's the shoes on your feet or your phone or anything. Something is going to come in the future that's going to disrupt that. And I've always, ever since I've been a little kid, been curious about what is that next new thing that's coming. And so that I just have a natural curiosity about it.
Mm-hmm. I take your point that technology is always about looking forward. And yet I wonder whether or not sometimes these advances, in fact, have the effect of taking us backwards, if you follow me.
Definitely. There's a great book called Alone Together, and it's an MIT professor who talked about how families can be in the exact same house and no one's talking to each other, but this one's on an iPad, that one's on a phone, that one's playing a video game, and yet they're not communicating the way we used to around the dinner table. It's no coincidence that many people in technology don't allow their kids to have phones and other things very early. I know with our daughter, it was later than middle school. It was her last year in middle school before she had a phone, and that was only because we needed to know where she was now that she had a little bit more independence. So I agree, but I think there's also ways to curb that, you know.
Mm-hmm. That raises two questions for me. Let me do this first. In what ways do you think, given that you have a daughter who you didn't give a phone to until her last year in middle school, and I'm sure she was screaming and yelling about that. I can't imagine that your daughter went to her last year in middle school when all her friends had phones and her mom and daddy, and her daddy's in the tech space, and not decided to give her a phone. I know you caught a hell for that, making her wait that long. That said, in what ways do you think this generation is being negatively impacted by the technology that you and others are bringing us daily?
You know, it was funny. This conversation comes up a lot, and so I grew up in the MTV generation, and we were told that we were having shorter attention spans because we were consuming this 3-minute visual content in this constant loop, and that our brains were developing differently, and we were no longer going to read books. And you know, there's times where some of that doesn't come out to be true. I think we're all constantly changing. I marvel at, I don't know if you've ever seen the video where they take an iPad into the Amazon rainforest and they hand it to someone who's never seen technology, and he knew how to operate it. So there's some very powerful things that are happening. So I think being a technologist and a futurist, I'm deeply biased to forward-looking, but I also do things like I'll leave the house and not take my phone. I will go camping and be in a tent with no Wi-Fi for 2 or 3 weeks. So I know the importance of unplugging from that. But I think it's also important to have, you know, the innovations that we can bring forward.
Yep. Here's a question I love asking technologists, whether they're on this program or whether I'm just meeting them somewhere, having conversation at some conference. I always love asking technologists because I can always gauge how truly transparent and honest they are by the answer to this one question. It's your chosen field, it's your muse, and yet I wonder what your answer is to what's what's the worst thing about technology.
I think the worst thing is it does disconnect us. It makes us less sensitive to having conversations. I think one of the great things about working in the movie industry, so I'm on the side that I'm about go and watch a movie in a theater. Now, I don't know if you went and saw Nope, but if I saw Nope at home with my wife, that's totally different than I'm up at Magic Johnson at 125th watching that with 500 people. And so I think that there are some things like that you can use the technology to help people get to the theater. But I still think when the film rolls, us all being in the audience with our phone turned off, I'm a fan of that because I think that's a very powerful experience, just like Thanksgiving and meals. You know, we were doing our Thanksgiving over COVID, you know, with Zoom. But when we got back together again and we're able to be in the same place, there's nothing like it. So I think that's the thing that is really important.
I don't want to get ahead of this conversation because I do want to get to the Hollywood stuff and get to your creating and founding MoviePass and get into your book, Black Founder, The Hidden Power of Being an Outsider. A lot to talk about. That's why I'm glad I've got you for the hour, Stacy Spikes. But let me stay at this point. And again, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but just since you went there, I want to ask this question in real time because you just said this in real time. So I don't want to lose it. This notion of the collective experience. You mentioned seeing Nope in a movie theater, and the experience would not have been the same at home. I take your point. There's something about that collective experience of being in a theater with hundreds of other people that does something to and for us. I want to ask you what that is in a moment. Let me preface it by saying, and I want to be honest here, there are some films I will go see with black people and some films I will not go see with Negroes. And you take my point. There's some films I don't want to be around no black folk. When I love my people, but I don't want to watch a movie with none of y'all because I want to hear the dialogue on the screen, not your ad libs from the audience. So there's some movies I just know our people are like, nope. Speaking of nope, I'm not going to see that film with black people. I'll go see this film with black people. So it does in fact depend on the project. That's just me. But I take your point that you were trying to get across that there's a collective experience that we have when we all show up together. What is that? What is that thing that we get from being together watching a film like Nope on a big screen?
You know, you ever notice that you could watch any football game or soccer match or concert on your phone. You could watch it. You could do, pretty much any of those things you can do right there on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
But why are we still building football stadiums? Because human beings like to do things together.
Mm-hmm.
There's a collective experience. A lot of people don't know that movie going on planet Earth is the number one out-of-home entertainment activity in the world.
Mm.
Whether you're in China or Russia or Europe or America, every week more than 20 million people choose to go sit in a theater with other strangers and sometimes family members to feel that experience. And sometimes they go to a black theater where they don't necessarily want to hear the movie, but they want to experience it with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
Nope, I get it. Sometimes I get it. And that's a fascinating factoid. I mean, I'm not surprised by that, but in all the years of my doing this, I never thought about it in that way. But it makes perfect sense that the number one out-of-home recreational experience that most of us participate in is going to see a movie. I mean, so I totally get it. And that's the reason why these movies make the kind of money they're making. Speaking of which, what do you make? Let me just pivot gently and I'll come back. What do you make of this Barbenheimer weekend that we had a weekend or two ago? I hear him. I hear it already. The Barbie movie I saw yesterday. Barbie is now crossed over $750 million. I didn't see that coming. That a movie Barbie could make that kind of money. Crossed over 750. Still made like 96 million last weekend, 3 weeks in. And Oppenheimer is now past 400 million. And it's all the talk of this industry, particularly at a moment when everybody's out on strike. But those numbers are pretty amazing. How do you read it as a Hollywood movie person, Stacy Spikes?
It's extraordinary. I mean, the numbers we had this past weekend, the largest fourth week of July, which is the biggest movie month there is, in history, in all of cinema history. We had, when Barbie and Oppenheimer that weekend, it was the third largest 4th of July weekend in the history of cinema. So it just goes to show. I remember when the pandemic, we were in the middle of it, and everyone's streaming is the future. Theaters are going to be gone the way of record stores. It's all over. And the thing that I kept telling people, I said, a concert is the live event of the music industry. Cinema is the live event of movie going. You never hear us say there's not going to be any more concerts. There's not going to be any more football. We're not going to go. We're just going to watch everything in, cyberspace or in VR, and we're going to look at it on our phones. So I really believe that you're seeing a resurgence and a reminder to so many people who really love that communal experience that's only second to going to church or synagogue, you know.
To your point, are there ways in which you think this Hollywood strike, as you know, SAG-AFTRA, which I'm a member, SAG-AFTRA is out on strike, along with our brothers and sisters in the Writers Guild. So everybody, this whole town, this station's heard across the nation, and now we're in syndication nationally. Thank you for that, everybody. But we're flagshipped in Los Angeles. I sit in Leimert Park right now, and this whole town is shut down because the writers are out, the actors are out, everybody's out. We're on strike right now. Are there ways in which you think this strike, if extended, if it goes too long, ends up hurting your industry, ends up doing irreparable damage? I think now the baseball strike years ago and other strikes I can think of, that it took a long time for these industries to recover from a strike that was extended. At the moment, as you know, there are no talks even scheduled in the strike in this town right now. So if this goes on too long, what's your sense of how what the damage is going to be to your beloved industry?
Like anything, I think the fact is we're just coming out of COVID. You're seeing Regal start to emerge out of bankruptcy. AMC had its best month in 4 or 5 years, something like that. So people are just starting to get their feet back underneath them. But we're looking at a lot of COVID or just end of COVID content that had been pushed back. So what'll happen is if this goes on too long, you have a pipeline that they're not editing stuff, they're not working on anything, everything's frozen, and downstream that's going to cause a lack of content, and you're going to have a problem.
Yeah. I was reading just last night that I guess it's Haunted House, the Disney film Haunted House.
Yes.
It basically tanked this weekend. Disney's had a bad run of late. And at one point they were number one for years running. They've had a bad run of late. This was a major opportunity for Tiffany Haddish. A great cast. Rosario Dawson made an amazing cast of characters, actors rather, in this film. It did not do well. Now, having said that, it didn't score particularly well going into theaters. But the fact that none of those actors could get out and promote the film because they're not allowing actors to do that while we're on strike suggests that movies that aren't being marketed and promoted properly don't get a chance to come out of the blocks. And I'm sure if Tiffany Haddish were here right now, she'd say, Tavis, it wasn't a bad film, and Disney may have had a bad run of late, but this film is a good film. It did not do well because we didn't get a chance to come on KBLA and other stations, WBOK, other stations across the country, and promote the film. That's what they would argue. I was thinking about Denzel. Denzel's got a film coming out, Equalizer 3. Is dropping unless they pull it back. I keep seeing every time you think something is coming out, you get word that they're going to pull it back. I mean, Equalizer 3 should be a huge summer hit for D, and yet D, I talked to D. D was coming on this program. We'd already set we set the schedule for him to come on to talk about it. He can't do it now because of the actor strike. And yet I keep hearing commercials. So my assumption is at the moment that Equalizer 3 is still going to drop, but it ain't going to do what it's supposed to do if D can't get out and promote it. So we're starting to get to that point now where the lack of promotion is hurting these openings, Stacy Spikes.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only thing I would push back a little bit is on Barbenheimer. That thing sucks so much air out of the room.
Right.
You saw that Tom's second week with Mission Impossible did much worse. And we saw what he did when he came out with Top Gun.
Sure.
So he can hold the box office. And, it just sucked the air out of everything in the room. And so I think that Haunted suffered a bit from that. I think it also could have benefited being closer to Halloween. But they had a lot of confidence in it. That's why they put it in the summer. But I think it had more to do with Barbie and Oppenheimer. If it had the right, because programming is very key, right? You're gonna steal lunch from somebody else.
I got it.
And so if you don't give it enough space, you're going to get cannibalized. And I don't think anybody could have seen what Barbie and Oppenheimer were going to do.
No, I think you're right. The Disney film Haunted House cost $200 million to make, and it made $24 million the first weekend. It gets worse than 24 as it goes on. $200 million to make, only brought in $24 million first weekend. Not a good look for Disney. When we come forward, Stacy Spikes, and we're talking Hollywood stuff in part because he created MoviePass, and we'll talk about MoviePass and his creation and what happened to it when we come forward on Tavis Smiley with our guest, Stacy Spikes.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
What does access mean?
Access means owning a home.
Access means growing my business.
Access means building generational wealth.
No matter your goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Programs and initiatives provide the tools and resources to help you reach them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey, life doesn't stop when cancer starts. After diagnosis, treatment is vital. But for some, just getting there, to appointments, chemo, or radiation, is a major challenge. You can change that. Volunteer to give rides with the American Cancer Society Road to Recovery program. Driving for a few hours of your day can make a life-saving difference for someone with cancer. Visit cancer.org/drive to learn more.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Pennsylvania, jurors will begin deliberations today in the final penalty phase of the trial of the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter. Robert Bowers killed 11 people in a mass shooting in October of 2018 at the Tree of Life Synagogue. The prosecution and defense rested their cases Monday in the penalty phase, and now jurors will be tasked with deciding if Bowers will be put to death. In Massachusetts, NAACP delegates debated for more than 10 hours before approving a slate of priorities as the organization's national convention continued in Boston. The policies that will shape the agenda for the NAACP include seeking stricter gun control laws and removing racist education from U.S. schools. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
A SIG alert is cleared in Monterey Park on the 10 westbound past New Avenue. Earlier wreck wrapping up on the shoulder was slowing from Baldwin Avenue. In Carson, 110 northbound at Torrance Boulevard, a crash blocking the left lane. Delays there from Pacific Coast Highway. And in Diamond Bar, working on a wreck on the 60 eastbound at Brea Canyon Road. 3 left lanes blocked there with slowing from Fullerton Road.
Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned doubled. The cash back from trips, restaurants, all doubled. Seriously, though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
Calling all night owls, Buffalo Wild Wings is open late. Fill up on some tasty apps with an ice cold tall beer starting at $4. Late night food and drinks start at $4 from 10 till close at B-Dubs. Limited time at participating locations. Offers, days, and times may vary. Drink responsibly. Void where prohibited. Tax and fees extra.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are back in action tonight after an off day on Monday. They start a 3-game series at home against Oakland. Clippers backup forward Amir Coffey was arrested early Monday morning in Hollywood on suspicion of carrying a concealed weapon. Coffey was one of 2 passengers in a car. The driver was pulled over by LAPD for speeding. Coffey was booked for a misdemeanor and released. His court date is August 24th. Doc Rivers and Doris Burke are the new analysts for ESPN's #1 NBA broadcast team. Contracts for Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy were not renewed. Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin went through his first practice in full pads on Monday. 7 months ago, on January 2nd, he was fighting for his life after suffering a cardiac arrest in that Monday night game in Cincinnati. What a wonderful story. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
On a Mission Youth Travel presents the 2023 Morehouse Homecoming HBCU College Tour, October 25th through October 29th in Atlanta, Georgia. Open to high school students grades 9 through 12. For more information, please call 323-298-4779. Again, 323-298-4779. Students will tour Morehouse College, Spelman College, Clark Atlanta University, Alabama State, and Tuskegee University. Email info@onamissionyouthtravel.com. Again, info@onamissionyouthtravel.com. The HBCU tour price includes all meals, transportation, round-trip airfare with one checked bag, hotel accommodations, all museums, college tours, and admission to the Morehouse versus Kentucky State University homecoming football game. Spaces are filling up quickly, so call today to sign up. 323-298-4779. Again, 323-298-4779.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Stacy Spikes, I'm laughing because I have a really, 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 really smart audience. Whenever I make a mistake, because I am not human and divine, whenever I make a mistake, I can say something wrong 3 times, and I got 2 people staring me in my face, and they won't hear it. They won't correct me, but my listeners will correct me. So there's at least one person who saw the Disney film because they called to correct me, and you were kind not to. I'm sure you picked up on it, but you didn't want to correct me on there. I kept saying haunted house. It's haunted mansion.
Yeah.
It's not haunted house. So that just means that Miles and JD didn't see it, and I clearly did not see it. According to the numbers, not many people did, but at least one person in Chicago, I ain't going to call your name out, I ain't going to embarrass you, not embarrass you, but at least one person in Chicago saw it and said, Tavis, it's actually called Haunted Mansion. And that one person in Chicago was not Tiffany Haddish. So somebody saw Haunted Mansion. It is not Haunted House. But I correct that. In any event, not many people will notice that distinction. And again, only one person reached out to me because, again, the numbers indicate that not many people saw it anyway to correct me on Haunted Mansion versus Haunted House. But I digress on that point. Now, that said, I always want to be transparent and truthful around here and accurate. I pride myself in being accurate, and I just slipped up and said haunted house when I should have said haunted mansion. All right, that's it. Back to Stacy Spikes. In case you just tuned in, Stacy Spikes has a new book out. It's called Black Founder, The Hidden Power of Being an Outsider. He is a black technologist and a good one. USA Today says he's one of the 21 most influential and important black folk in technology, and we'll talk more about his book when we move forward. We've been talking, at least we were for the past few minutes, about Hollywood stuff, because once again, he is the founder of MoviePass. Now, there's a fascinating story that goes with how this black technologist founded MoviePass, how he lost MoviePass, and how he got MoviePass back again. It's a good thing we have an hour because it takes a while to unpack these stories. So I'm going to give you a few minutes, Stacy Spikes, to tell me how our brother created MoviePass that we all know about, how our brother lost MoviePass, and how our brother got MoviePass back again. I pass the mic to you, Stacy Spikes.
Well, you did a great setup. I'll fill in a few of the gaps. So me and a wonderful brother named Hamay Watt, my co-founder, back in 2011, 2012, we wanted to make Netflix for movie theaters. And we thought, hey, a lot of people like going to the movies. Maybe we could launch a subscription service. And we worked really hard. We, got lucky with some great investors. And we were able to get it up on its feet. And for 5 years, we did our thing. And a lot of people respected the brand. And in 2017, we got a buy offer, and a private equity group wanted to come in. And one of the requirements, the price point was $30 a month for an all-you-can-eat. You could go to the movies every single day if you wanted, to any theater you wanted. Well, they came in and said, well, we want to make it grow faster. Netflix is $10 a month. Let's make this service $10 a month. And I said, well, that's a little cheap because that's cheaper than the average movie ticket. And I don't know how that's going to work. And they said, well, you know what? We know what we're doing. We're buying you. You're not buying us. And part of the lockup period, so often when founders company get bought, there's 3 ways that it happens. They'll buy you out cash, right? Here's money, walk away. They will do a cash stock mixture. So here's some cash, here's some of our stock. And then there's purely stock. Well, we were in the middle. We were part cash, part stock. And what they will do is they'll have what's called a lockup period because they don't want the founders just to walk out the door. And then people who are excited about the brand say, well, wait, why did Elon Musk or so-and-so just leave the company, right? So they'll keep you around for about a year or 2 for transition. So we had this lockup period, which we couldn't exercise our exit, and it was 12 months. So we put the $10 price point. We think we're going to add 100,000 people, and we ended up adding in a few months. We ended up adding 100,000 new customers in less than 48 hours. People were like, $10 a month. And I said to them, we need to turn this off. Got to turn this off right now. There's no way that's going to work. And they're like, no, look how fast we're growing. To disagree, they said, we don't think you like our new business model after we hit about 1 million and 1.5 million people. And they said, we'll take it from here. You go sit home. And they fired me. And because I said, you're going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And they didn't listen to what I said, went up to 3 million customers, and then went bankrupt. And over COVID, everything happened, and nobody bought the company because I think everybody was in a COVID mindset. Nobody was checking for movie theaters. And I bought the company back last year for $140,000. In 2017, it was worth nearly $500 million.
I was about to ask that question. What was the height of valuation? $500 million is the height of valuation, and he bought it back out of bankruptcy for $140,000. What say you about that, Stacy? Around here, we say, won't he do it? That's what we say, won't he do it?
Yeah. Hey, if I could have gotten it back, the brand was strong. According to some third parties, more than 50% of moviegoers in the United States are aware of the brand. It is very hard to build a brand, and we had built one very successfully. And so if I could bring it back, I looked at historically, whether it was Steve Jobs or when Michael Dell went back and took over Dell Computers.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a few times in American business history where the founders came back and they were able to finish the mission that they were trying to do to build a great company.
Yep. You could write a book about it. In fact, you have written a book about some of your experiences. It's called Black Founder, The Hidden Power of Being an Outsider. But let me just ask you top line, a couple of things that you learned from that specific and unique experience of starting something, selling it, having the folk you sold it to screw it up, and having to come back and rescue it to rebuild the brand. Just give me a couple of things you've learned about this experience, from this experience overall, Stacy Spikes.
I think if I could do it again, I probably would have fought for far more cash up front.
Mm-hmm.
So that was telling. I think if they had listened, we probably all it would have been fine, but they, and then I think the other big thing is, really having more people of color in positions of venture capital that we could have gone to. There's a handful, there's very few, other than mom and pops, there's very few theater owners of color in North America. There are no heads of studios of color. And so we make up, between black and brown people, almost 50% of the box office, but we're not part of the decision-making process. Mm-hmm. We had Magic Johnson in there for a little bit. So having someone in the food chain is important. And so I think the biggest thing was you're seeing it more and more that there's a lot more people of color being able to create funds and be able to capitalize businesses, because it's very hard to create generational wealth if you're not. They were able to get funded, but we didn't get funded, and that's how you lose brands built by black people.
No, I get it. Speaking of black people, I am a black founder, but I always am anxious to learn from other black founders. His memoir is called Black Founder, The Hidden Power of Being an Outsider. I want to probe that when we come forward with Stacy Spikes on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Parents, we know we can't protect our kids from everything. Eventually, they're going to bump their heads or scrape their knees. But we can protect them from 6 types of cancer. HPV, or human papillomavirus, is a common preventable virus that can cause cancer later in life. The HPV vaccine prevents human papillomavirus and all the cancers it can cause. The American Cancer Society recommends getting your sons and daughters the HPV vaccine starting at age 9 to protect them later in life.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, in downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Extreme heat increases your risk of heat illness and death. Warning signs of heat exhaustion include muscle cramps, headache, and nausea. Signs of heat stroke include a fever of 103 or higher, confusion, and loss of consciousness. Protect yourself by limiting time spent outdoors, staying hydrated, and staying cool in air-conditioned spaces. Learn how to stay safer from extreme heat at heatreadyca.com. Brought to you by the state of California.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Stacy Spikes, I love this memoir, Black Founder, The Hidden Power of Being an Outsider. What is the hidden power of being an outsider? It seems counterintuitive, but what is the hidden power of being an outsider?
You know, my point of view is that when you are on the outside, you are there's very little expectations around your success, which means you create a dynamic. Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hours.
Sure.
Well, you can perfect your craft where people aren't paying attention to you. So, you know, people didn't see Venus and Serena coming. People weren't checking for Jordan when he was still riding the bench and he wasn't who he became. And so sometimes when you're that underdog or that outsider, you can work in the shadows without the spotlight, or people, like you started at the top of the episode, putting a brand on you that says, oh, I know you're going to make it, right? Sometimes that outsiderness makes you work harder. It makes you fight harder. You have to build your craft so much more than you would if you had the money, you had the cash, you had the family, you went to the right school. You don't have to work the same way.
Yeah.
And cream does rise to the top. And so I was trying to showcase in the book, and it's been my experience and a lot of people I've seen, being an outsider has a lot of advantages, and sometimes you want to see it from that point of view versus giving up and saying, I didn't go to the right school, so why should I try?
No, I love that. So let me just ask then, when the Hollywood Reporter put you on their list of 30 under 30, I mentioned that you were on the list of the 21 most important black folk in technology, influential folk in black folk in technology. But some years ago, Hollywood Reporter put you on that list of 30 under 30. How did that in any way change your status as an outsider? Now you're being recognized by one of the leading trades in this industry. How did that change your status as an outsider? How did that change, to the extent that it did, your expectations of yourself once you make their list?
You know, So you know some of the people that I'm about to say, but back in the day, Gerald Busby was the CEO of Motown. And I was at Motown when I ended up on that list because I was Boyz II Men's product manager. And Gerald Busby said something to me. He said, never stay anywhere more than 4 years unless you have equity in the business. And the thing that article made me realize, and Gerald telling me that and pulling me aside, where I'm hanging out with Clarence Avon, I'm hanging out with Gerald, I'm hanging out with Michael Bivins, I'm watching these guys run the game, and I didn't own anything. So Tavis, I realized, even though I was being acknowledged, I had no generational wealth capabilities because I didn't own anything. And so that's the part that that makes you an outsider, where you're a check away from trying to find a job.
Point well taken. He realized he was on the outside, and there's power on being on the outside. But eventually, you want to use that power on the outside to get on the inside. I digress. His book is called Black Founder, The Hidden Power of Being an Outsider. His name is Stacy Spikes, and you're listening to him right now on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
MC Light, or AARP, hip-hop, the cultural phenomenon that took New York by storm in 1973, is celebrating 50 years of rocking mics and crowds. Whether you're a ride-or-die hip-hop head or simply curious about its origins, check out the latest issue of AARP, the magazine. It celebrates this incredible milestone with a featured story brimming with fun hip-hop facts and history. Head over to aarp.org/black community to learn more.
Community is more than where you live. It's the people in it who go above and beyond to help it thrive. During the 50th anniversary of hip-hop and the 75th anniversary of Black radio, AARP recognizes the members, volunteers, people, and partners giving back to our communities. We believe when our efforts drive change for the greater good, we all thrive together. To learn more about how AARP supports efforts to keep our communities thriving, visit aarp.org/black community.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA stands with you in fighting for the rights of black workers, and we don't black down. The Los Angeles Black Workers Center is a dynamic alliance of workers, organized labor, community-based organizations, clergy, students, and scholars, working collectively to improve the position of the black working class. The LA Black Workers Center takes a comprehensive approach to addressing the black jobs crisis. Their programs promote access to quality jobs, racial equity in hiring and retention, discrimination-free job sites, and they prepare black workers for employment in high-wage, career-track jobs. The Black Workers Center supports workers who need help protecting their rights on the job. They give workers access to quality jobs and remove systemic barriers to employment. To sign up for free career readiness training, get involved in organizing around anti-discrimination, learn about union apprenticeship programs, or sign on to a trade registry, please visit www.lablackworkerscenter.org. That's lablackworkerscenter.org. Together, we can beat the black jobs crisis. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin Ultra Strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Okay. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Just a few minutes left here in conversation with Stacy Spikes, and I've enjoyed this immensely. He's the author of the book Black Founder, The Hidden Power of Being an Outsider. He is the founder of MoviePass, which he co-founded and built up and then lost and had to come back and rescue again. out of the dustbin of history, as they say. Blow it off, shake it off, and bring it back. So that said, before I lose you at the top of the hour here, now that you were able to buy this back, for those again who may have just tuned in, it's a fascinating story. You got to read about it. Black founder, hidden power of being an outsider. He creates MoviePass. It becomes valued. The valuation at its height was $500 million. How much you said? You said $500 million. I'm sorry, $500 million. You said. $500 million, excuse me, with a B, $500 million with in valuation. He loses it. He sells it and ends up being pushed out. Loses it and comes back to buy it out of bankruptcy once they screwed it up for $140,000. $500 million evaluation, buys it back out of bankruptcy for $140,000, and now he's on the road to bringing this thing back. So tell me where you are in that process in the 2 minutes I have left, Stacy Spikes.
Thanks, Tavis. So, we bought it back, and it's been up since January. We have been seeing a lot of traction. People have loved it. You can see people are going back to the movies again, and it's right on time. And the new version of the platform, people really do like it and enjoy it, and a lot of people are happy to see it back. Probably the one big difference between, say, a movie theater is you can use MoviePass to go anywhere versus you can only go to one theater. So that's the big difference that a lot of people appreciate.
Yep. But it was that way the first time you did it, was it not?
Yep. It was that way the first time.
Got it. So as a black technologist, is there something that you say people love the new experience? Is there something you learned over those years while you were inside, for that matter, or outside, that you've now tweaked about the way MoviePass works?
Yeah, the big thing was we saw that people were interested in a price point. So how do you make $10 work? How do you make $20 or $30 work? Where it was set at those different levels. And so we used a point system with credits that now you can get so many credits at a $10 level or $30. And that way, if you're a person who goes every weekend, or if you're a person who goes once or twice a month, we were able to fix it so that you come in wherever you're comfortable at the price. So we met both worlds, and that's how we were able to do it.
And that's why you are a brilliant black man. That's why you are a black founder. See, if the white boys who bought the company had paid attention to you or listened, they would have figured out that you want to tier this thing. You want to have tiers, and the company wouldn't have gone bankrupt. But that's what they get, and you got it back for $140,000. And I ain't mad at you, Stacy Spikes. His book is called Black Founder: The Hidden Power of Being an Outsider. He's the founder of MoviePass. MoviePass is back. I love the stories of black entrepreneurs, the stories of black founders. Nothing that gives me greater joy than to advance these narratives and to share these stories and encourage you to support these black-owned businesses, these black-owned creators. So if you are getting back into going to the movies and you've never looked at MoviePass or knew anything about MoviePass or how it works, you can save money on it. And that's always a good thing for black people. You save money, black folk, by going to MoviePass, and I highly recommend you check it out. Stacy, congratulations on the book, on getting MoviePass back, and all the other great things that are in your future. A delight, sir, to have you on this program.
Tavis, thank you, man. Thank you for everything.
I appreciate you. Hour 3 of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Pennsylvania, jurors will begin deliberations today in the final penalty phase of the trial of the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter. Robert Bowers killed 11 people in a